Welcome to Between Views. I'm your host, Alec Koski. This podcast aims to cast light on and connect you with inspirational people, identify them as potential mentors in your journey, and share their wisdom with the world. This is part 2 of our interview with inspiring entrepreneur, hunter, father, athlete, and owner of Fallow Nutrition, Dan Maberly. I'd also like to take a moment to let you know that this set of podcasts has been brought to you by Fallow Nutrition, an Australian-made, all-natural and organic, vegan, gluten, dairy and nut-free nutrition company that has been inspired by nature and handcrafted in the snowy mountains. At Fallow, they believe in the power of plants to transform your health and well-being. They offer premium quality plant protein powders, superfood pre-workout, and electrolytes that will nourish your body, support muscle growth, and help enhance your overall performance. At Between Views, nothing gets us more excited than a post-workout smoothie with a huge scoop of fallow protein. The link to Dan's product will be left in the description below. Remember to use the code FALLOW10 for 10% off your first order.
Fueled by fallow, not only my protein, but
now I'm not sure we actually got completely onto it before, but what does fallow mean?
So fallow is fallow deer. It's the species of deer that I first hunted.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's the ones that you see around here, the cute little Bambis.
Yeah,
right? The Bambis are the European ones with the spotted coats. But we get,
it's a hard one on the heart that, it's interesting because obviously you're providing sustainable meat for your family, friends, and as far as I can tell, community. You're also providing sustainable and nutritious protein as one of your products. So it's morally very sound to sell that to people.
Yeah.
But then, you remember Bambi.
Yeah, right.
And you're like,
so that's why I couldn't do aerial culling. There's a lot of culling that goes around here because there's thousands and thousands of deer, and doing random shots out of a helicopter, even if you've got fantastic weaponry, not every shot's going to be accurate. And if you're pumping a few hundred deer in a day, you're not going to get every shot perfect, and these things are going to die slowly. Yeah. Whereas
it's killing without reason, really. I mean, there's a reason, but it's killing without that resource going to anything.
Yeah,
that just lay there.
Exactly. So when I'm hunting something, for example, the other morning I went out and I found a nice, cute little Bambi mum and a cute little son next to her. And I was just watching them do their thing and just be super cute. And there's not a chance I'm going to shoot those ones. If I was in an apocalyptic situation and I really needed to eat, then I would. But when I have the option to try and find some males and some big guys, sort of it's kind of like I'm trying to hunt pick on your own size, someone my size, I go for the bigger bucks because there's more meat. They've had time to spread their seed.
Of course.
And
they've done their reproduction already.
That's it. And I keep as much as possible. Yeah. Right?
Can you walk me through what a hunting experience is like? Can you just, from the time you leave home to when you're back and what's going through your head, what you're thinking while you're out there, could you just run me through what an experience like that is like? Because I feel like, not just me, I feel like a majority of people who are going to hear this will have never been hunting, never considered hunting, nor have even thought what that might be like or the range of motions. I think it would be super interesting to talk about, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, well, I do it a little bit differently. I've had a few arguments, well, not arguments, but disagreements with people where they just shoot anything that moves and they just leave it. They don't eat the meat. They don't care about it. And that's not for me. So what I try and do is when I go hunting in the morning, I really prefer to go hunting in the morning. So I'll get up at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, depending on the time of year. And I will get out there. I'll put on my gear, and while I'm putting on my gear, I'll be sipping my pre-workout in the morning, and I'll pack a banana and some pistachios. I've pretty much always got pistachios in my bag, but I'll have a banana, some pistachios, and then I'll
had this really funny scene pop into my head where like you're out hunting and you're like watching the deer, but then you pull up the pistachio to your mouth and crack it, and the deer hears it and runs off, but you're still stoked because you have the pistachio.
I've had similar situations where I've tried to eat, and I'm thinking I'm far enough away from the deer, and the wind's not good, and they can hear you and smell you, and you're like, oh, damn.
Okay, so it's important. So you've gone out and you're starting to move into the wilderness. Your positioning is important.
Yeah, so I'll run you through what I do. So pretty much once I get my bag sorted and I put on all my gear, I'll double check my rifles. If I'm using a rifle, I've been bow hunting a lot recently too. So,
oh my gosh, I used that bow one time with you. Yeah. I couldn't even draw it back. You're a really strong person. Like I tried and I was just stuck on like complete. I couldn't even pull the string back at all. How many pounds is that bow?
It's 70.5 pounds.
Right.
Like, so it's good enough to take down a huge stag. You can take down a stag.
Yeah.
And it's quite accurate to, between 50 and 70 yards.
I've seen you hit bullseye from that far.
Yeah, it's pretty good. But bow hunting's just a whole nother level. So it's really hard to stalk something and creep up on something.
So you're going out. Okay, you're going out in the wilderness. I keep interrupting because I get these awesome visions. Go ahead. The stage is yours.
So I'll do the other morning. So the other morning when I got the red. So I've walked out a fair few times on my property before, and I know where the basic game trails are, which is, the common routes that the animals use. So I know sort of the movements of the deer because the deer generally eat at night. They'll eat in the afternoon and the nighttime and then into the morning, and then they will bed down during the hottest part of the day and they'll go to sleep. So the best time to catch them is either early morning or just in the afternoon, just as the sun's gone down. So I get out there just as it's getting light, like you just don't need a torch. And I will do a quick little scan. I love the other morning. It was foggy. I love hunting in the fog because you can only see, 50, 60 meters in front of you. So things just literally pop out. It's like digging for gold, any second something can pop out and you've got to react. I love it. You can sneak up on things too. But the other morning I went out and I did a quick little scan around the place. Didn't really see anything. So I walk really slow. I have a tracking app as well that I use. So that way I know exactly where I'm walking and how far I've walked, and I can make notes that I go, all right, I saw some deer here. I'll make a note that what time I saw them, how many there were, and I'll see if I can try and get that consistent so that I can catch them off guard and just learn their movements.
So it pays to understand the patterns of the deer first, and note taking is actually a really big thing when you're getting into hunting. Yeah. Okay.
So first thing I do when I get out there is I check the wind. Where's the wind going, right? If the wind is howling and, it's blowing trees, there's almost no point hunting because the deer are going to be in the trees. They're going to be hanging out of the wind because they've got very good hearing, right? So you can imagine, when wind is in the phone and you can't hear anything, or the radio, you can't hear anything when it's blowing a gale. It's the same thing with hunting. The deer can't hear anything, so they prefer to be safe in the trees and they sit out of the way. So if there's a nice gentle breeze that's consistent, that's perfect. So I'll see which direction the wind's coming, and then I'll make an assessment as to which direction I go up the hill, if I'm going to go the right-hand side or the left-hand side, because you want to be downwind of them, right? So you don't want them to smell you because they've got very, very good smelling and very good hearing. So if you make too much noise, or if you spray too much deodorant on yourself, they will smell that because that's an unnatural smell, and they'll get spooked and they'll be skittish.
Oh, really?
They'll run. Yeah. Fallow deer are supposed to be one of the easiest to hunt in Australia. from what some people have said, but it's still very, very difficult. Still very difficult.
Yeah.
So I make my assessment of the wind, and then I start walking, and I walk slow. And pretty much you're walking that slow that you can't hear yourself, because if you can only hear yourself walking, you can't hear anything else. So ideally you want to catch something that's eating, that's relaxed, because you don't want the deer to know that you're there, because you don't want to scare them and you don't want them to run. So you think about if you do a sprint and you're sprinting hard, you're creating lactic acid buildup and you're getting adrenaline in your system. Now imagine someone's like trying to hurt you, you know, and you're running, you know, you're going to get a huge adrenaline build up in the cortisol and all the stress. So that translates into the muscle of the deer. So you want to be as quiet as possible, and you want to get it when they're literally just eating. They're eating, they're relaxed, and you want a perfect shot through the heart or double lung.
Yeah, so you typically aim for organs then?
Yes, definitely.
And the reason you do that is why?
Because anything in the gut, you know, I've done a few bad gut shots and it's not good for the animal. The animal slowly dies. It's horrible and makes you feel horrible. Well, I do. I feel horrible if I do a very bad shot, and I feel like I failed as a hunter, but that's just, I feel like every hunter's done that at least once. So you want to practice as much as you can to make sure that your shooting skills are the best, or practice with a bow as much as you can, so that when the time comes, you're completely relaxed. You're not shaking and potentially flinching and hurting something and having it run off into the neighbor's property or just get hurt and run away. Like, the last thing you want is to shoot a deer in the butt or put an arrow in its butt. Like, that's horrible. That's not good. So you want to take down the animal as quickly as possible with as least stress as possible. So you want to make sure your shooting skills are good. So when I'm out on a hunt, I will try and get as close as possible. With a rifle, it's much easier. Like, I took down that red deer the other day at 350 yards with these new bullets that I've been making, because I like learning things, right? I like learning new things. So I thought, if I'm going to shoot, I may as well learn about what I'm actually shooting. So I learned how to make my own bullets, and then experimented with that. And now I think I've dialed in, you know, my bullets and my hunting methods. So I will try and take as much of the deer as possible. So I'll take a hide and I'll tan the hide. I'll take the skull and I'll make a Euro mount out of the skull, and I'll give it to people as gifts.
So you don't waste any?
I don't waste anything. And I'll get as much, any offcuts. I don't have a dog myself, but I have a lot of mates that have dogs. So I vacuum seal it and I give it to them as gifts for dog meat. I seen a picture the
other day. I had like 50 vacuum sealed bags. A lot of meat. It's a lot of meat. It's enough to provide for far more than just your family, or if it is just your family, for ages, for a really long time. Like
that. The one deer that I got
for one deer that they're just culling them anyway, right?
Yeah.
They're literally just getting rid of these deers, killing them with no reason except getting rid of them.
Yeah.
So going out hunting in this area and getting some meat for your family and community, it's incredible. It's putting that energy that came from the earth, had to build this whole creature.
Yep.
Putting it to use.
Yep, that's it. And I got over 33 kilos of meat from that deer the other day.
Gosh.
Yeah,
it's a lot.
Yeah, and I could have got a little bit more if I kept like some more bones and stuff like that, but that was just meat. I love it, and it's a spiritual experience for me. Like taking something's life, I bless it. Like, everybody has different beliefs, but it makes me feel good when I have a little bit of Palo Santo. I have a little bit of Palo Santo, and when I take something down Sometimes I'm with the animal as it's expiring, so I'll have my hand on its heart and I can feel the heartbeat stop, and I'm thanking it. I'm thinking about the people that are going to be eating it, the energy that it's going to provide for everybody, and it makes me feel good. Makes me feel good about what I'm doing.
Yeah, and it doesn't get much more local than that. Meat from the land for the local people who live in this land right now. That's a really close circuit of energy, just straight back into the earth, straight back into the people that are here, right?
Yeah.
It's really cool. Okay, so you go out hunting, you go early, you try and avoid being downwind from the deer so they can't smell you.
You avoid being upwind.
Avoid being upwind from the deer so they can't smell you. You're basically stalking like a cat would stalk almost in a way, trying to get as close as you can so you can get the best shot, heart or lungs to kill instantly, and then you bless the meat.
Yep.
Okay, wow. So it's quite a process. Yeah. And that's not the end of the process, is it at all?
Just the beginning. It's just the beginning, and then you gotta get it out, right? Because I like to keep everything. It's not like I just take the back straps, like take a bit of meat and then just leave the rest of it. So I dragged that red deer. It was about 350, 400 meters.
How heavy is that?
It was over 100 kilos.
And you just have to drag it.
Yeah.
Or carry it.
I wanted to keep organ meats and stuff. So it was...
Hunting's a workout in itself.
Yeah. I was moving it a few meters and like just dripping, like just profusely dripping sweat and just...
It's a good time for electrolytes, huh?
Yeah. absolute exhaustion. You know, everything screaming. You know, it's great. It's a extremely functional workout.
Now, I don't know if this is just from movies or not, but there's one of my favorite movies of all time, Into the Wild. So Alexander Supertramp, Christopher McCandless goes out into the wild and he finds he wants to hunt. He wants to be man in the stone, him alone, out in nature, right? And he kills this bear, which is like way too big for him, and he knows how to save meat in the wilderness, but he realizes he's like against the clock. Like he knows he has to do it quick, but so that flies don't get to it and so it doesn't get maggot. So like, I don't know if that's obviously accentuated in the film, but how much time do you have once you make a kill to get it back to base and start working on it?
Tell you what, man, it's if it's summer, midsummer, these flies are instant. Like as soon as there's light of day, they're on there. So you've only got a few hours before you're starting to get maggots in there. Like it's crazy quick. Like they land on the hide and they start laying these little things on the hide.
They're coming straight away.
Straight away.
Straight
away. Winter's great. Winter's great because you don't have the flies.
Oh yeah, true.
Yeah,
right now there's a lot of flies.
Yeah, and especially if you can have a place to hang it. Like sometimes you don't even need a fridge down here to hang it. You know, especially if it's during winter and you got pretty low temperatures. As long as there's no bugs and things that can get to it, you're pretty sweet.
Do you prefer a hunt in winter or summer?
Well,
I feel like winter would be magical.
I would say winter because
it'd be scary too.
It's
so like
just because of the flies, like you get more time to process things. So like because as soon as you shoot something or it dies, it's going to start to bloat, and then you're going to have a very short window before it's going to be very hard to take the guts out without puncturing anything. And as soon as you puncture something, then all of a sudden you got bacteria going through.
Coming out of the organ.
Yeah. And, you don't want to have all gut bacteria on your meat and then go store that in the fridge. It's not going to be good. It can make you sick. So I just avoid anything that's got gut bacteria or anything that's super bloodshot near the bullet wound or anything like that. But you've only got a short window of time, especially in summer, before your meat's going to spoil. And that's why, like, you can't just shoot something in summer and then leave it for a few hours and then come back to it.
Once it's shot, you have to go.
Yeah. It's you got to work. You got to start quick.
That's the beginning. And how long does that process take, getting it back to base and getting it essentially into pretty much all the way into bags, right? You want to like fully vacuum sealed and everything. Yeah. Yes, there's a lot of prep.
Yeah. So
prior to going out.
It depends. If you have access to a cool room, I used to use a neighbour's cool room. So that's great. Like, because if you got a cool room, then you can shoot multiple deer and then put them in the cool room, and then you can hang them. Because some people prefer to hang them, and it makes for better quality meat. For me, I feel it's all in the way you cook it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What do we have the other night? We had venison spaghetti bowl.
Yeah.
It was delicious.
Yeah. So that was.
And you taught me how to essentially grind meat, but with cleavers.
The traditional Chinese method.
Yeah. Dan and I were just in the kitchen, dual wielding. Like it's kind of sounded like playing the drums, but it felt really nice to be part of the process with you. Like I felt like I'd kind of, joined in and helped somehow, and it made the meal so much more satisfying and so much more meaningful.
Yeah.
And just knowing that you had done it, like I felt no qualms with having consumed the meat because it came from the land here, literally.
It's good for the soul.
It's old. It's an old practice hunting.
Yeah.
And something that's very lost these days, right?
Yeah. I feel like it's a very primal thing. Like I feel like I really connect to my old animal instincts when I go hunting. It feels like I've been doing it for years. It's one of those things that I'll keep doing for the rest of my life, wherever I can, whenever I can.
Yeah.
And I'll just keep getting better.
Yeah.
Because it's a lifelong process, and it takes a long time to get really good at hunting. And you make mistakes and you learn a lot of lessons through it. You cut yourself occasionally, but I feel like it's such an awesome skill to have, especially, if there's food shortages around. Like I remember during COVID, you'd go into Woolies and there was no meat on the shelf. There's nothing. And then I'd come home and I've got an entire chest freezer full of meat. It was.
So actually, it's crazy. It's in the strangest of ways, it's somewhat like vegetable gardening.
Yeah.
Except you didn't plant the deer, you didn't raise the deer. There is obviously that angle. That's farming, right? Farming is like the animal version of vegetable farming. But yours are just out here. They're a resource that's depleting anyway because they're getting rid of them on purpose, and you're using something that would otherwise go to waste.
Yeah,
I think it's beautiful.
I'm much better at hunting than I am at farming at this stage.
Yeah, and obviously you're very passionate about hunting. When we started talking about that, I felt the energy just rise up. You're passionate about nutrition. You're passionate about training. And obviously, like anything to do with health and its growth, your growth, your family's growth is something that you care about deeply.
100%.
And often what we talk about, we spend a lot of time talking exactly about that, off interview. So it's nice to hear it again. I'm glad we get to share it. Thank you for listening to part 2 of our interview with Dan. If you enjoyed what you heard, please jump over on Instagram and give them a follow at Fallow Nutrition. Also remember, the best way you can support this podcast is by following or subscribing to Between Views on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcast and Apple Podcast, or liking or sharing it with a friend. Remember to leave comments in the section below. Finally, if you know someone who deserves to be interviewed or just have some feedback, then send us an email at betweenviewsbv@gmail.com or message us on Instagram. Thanks again and see you soon. Between Views.